Hey everyone, welcome to today's video. Today we're going to be looking at Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions. This was a Metroidvania style game that was actually released in 2009, and one of the really cool things about this game is, as simple as or simplistic as it was presented, I think one of the really nice things that a lot of players can actually say about this game is the amount of nostalgia that it actually brings for them. Now fortunately for me, this was my first time actually playing the game in 2019 December, and I just really wanted to share my thoughts and my perspective as somebody who was actually picking up the game for the very first time. Now, one of the really cool things about this game is you have to appreciate the way it was actually a game designed in its time and designed for exactly what it wanted to be, which is the Metroidvania style adventure game. Now, this game had a very simple, straightforward design. Your job as Spider-Man, or as the Spider-Man, was to actually accomplish specific tasks in different environments. And so you got those tasks being Spider-Man of the present, Spider-Man of the future, being Spider-Man of the past, and being a Spider-Man mixed with the Venom. And this really was explosive because every time you wore a specific Spider-Man costume, it required you to actually play the game at a different pace and in a different style. So for example, maybe you wore the Spider-Man 2099 suit, or you went to the future to accomplish this task. You found yourself in a very fast-paced gameplay. And then when you found yourself in the Venom suit, you were also dealing with some really crazy fast gameplay, dealing with enemies and all that good stuff. That's, in my opinion, one of the ways that the game actually puts you through this maze where you're just constantly running and the game doesn't seem to slow down until you beat the boss in a specific chapter. Now, for those of you who've played the game, it's a very simple premise, or for those of you who haven't, the premise is very straightforward. Spider-Man finds himself trying to take on Mysterio in a museum while he's trying to steal some ancient artifact, and as he punches Mysterio blocks with this ancient artifact, and then voila, the dimensions in all the realms are now in chaos because bad guys are trying to get their hands on the fragments of this so-called ancient relic, or whatever the heck it is. And then you, as a Spider-Man, in your time, you're commissioned by Madam Web to go ahead and retrieve them. And so in your quest, what happens is you don't not only get to just go retrieve them, you actually fight different iterations of villains in the Spider-Man universe. And I think one of the really cool things about this game is they took the opportunity to explore a lot of the creativity that you can actually gain in these surrounding archetypes. So for example, in one of your missions, you actually go into the past, where all you're playing in the past is mostly stealth until you meet the boss. And one of the really cool things that you see is they use Hammerhead. Hammerhead is a more classic villain, and he is, armed with 2 Tommy guns, and that's one of his MOs. And then when you fight him in the final boss fight, he does use some machine guns to try to deter you from getting close to him. And so using this and using the scenery and even the soundtrack was actually very reminiscent of the past. You would even think you're Spider-Man fighting in like the 30s or the 40s or on the East Coast of America, trying to dismantle this mob boss in a sense. I think that's the presentation that was given to Hammerhead. And then you look further into the future with Spider-Man of the future, where you actually go against, say, a villain, the Goblin, where you actually have to deal with him in a fast-paced environment, or even Dr. Octavius, the way they actually present her in this Metroidvania style game. A lot of jumping, a lot of fighting, a lot of really cool aspects of the game that makes it a fun run around experience. In a sense, almost a run and gun. In fact, it reminds me of a little bit of Contra if you are into the really old games. And then when you go into Spider-Man with the Venom suit, who was definitely my favorite, you have to deal with a lot of colorful bosses. The art style is so beautiful. I mean, when you go fight against Deadpool, you'll notice immediately that the art style is super enhanced, and it's a very colorful villain that you're actually dealing with. But one of the really cool fights that actually really comes to mind is your fight with Carnage. And so this fight actually does highlight that struggle that Venom has against Carnage with Spider-Man. I think they actually tried their best to actually interweave this in there, and so Spider-Man fans can actually get a solid retcon from all of that goes into everything there. And so these are some of the things that make Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions a very solid game to play through. For those of you who have not played the game, stay tuned. We'll be bringing the gameplay on this channel for you guys so that you can get your hands on and you can actually see what the game looks like after a long time ago, and you can interact with all of that. All in all, I would say Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions was a solid addition to the Spider-Man family. Now, yes, it did have some drawbacks. The drawbacks were every single time you had a very specific mission structure that was very, very similar every single time you found yourself dealing with a boss. So perhaps maybe you went into a chapter and that chapter involved you playing one of the Spider-Man. You would only have to play that chapter the very same way you played the other chapter that was relating to that Spider-Man. And then the main drawback, again, that I would actually put in this short editorial is your fight with Mysterio at the end. I felt like it was very unsatisfactory in my opinion, but I guess Metroidvania games can sometimes be like that. But because it was a Spider-Man game, I guess the expectation was probably a little higher in my opinion. I think I had more expectations going in and I felt a little disappointed. So all in all, this project, I feel like, was a solid addition nonetheless. There were some drawbacks in terms of mission structure, in terms of the final boss fight. But all in all, when it came to music, when it came to art style, when it came to a lot of the representations of what Spider-Man is and the retcons, you can put all these together and say you have yourself a solid game that was made about 10 years ago, that was made to appease the Metroidvania people and see Spider-Man in that kind of context and enjoy exactly who he is and what he's about. So thank you very much for watching the video. I appreciate you guys so much. Watch out for some gameplay footage. We're going to be giving you guys some nostalgia on the channel and hope to see you in our next video. If you enjoyed the content, please hit the like button, subscribe, and we'll see you in our next video. Thank you very much. We're out.